Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar about the journey and asset management plan softwares for aged care and retirement villages in Australia. Glad to have you on board, and we're going to be glad to get going on this webinar and show you what we have. A couple things before we get going. One, people ask if this will be recorded. Yes, it'll be recorded, and we'll make it available on YouTube or on our website, one way or the other, and send you the link. Also, the other thing is if you have questions during this webinar, you can use the question box that's in the webinar panel there and ask a question, and we'll do our best to answer it. Of course, we're always available afterwards for questions that may come up later, and then we'll be able to communicate by email. Also, the other point is we can always set up a one-on-one demo with people to do direct conversation and ask direct questions about our software. My name is Scott Restivo. I run Crow Canyon Systems, Crow Canyon Software, and I'm joined by Aidan O'Flaherty. He's over there in Penrith, and he and I have been cooperating for the last 3 or 4 years between our two companies, Crow Canyon Software and Tulich Communities, to develop a software that meets the requirements of retirement villages and aged care facilities as far as asset management, maintenance tasks, and now we also have a new program for continuous improvement plans, and we're coming out with other pieces of software. So I want to say hi there, Aidan. You're there, right? Aidan's there. I think he's
Hey everyone, yeah. So as Scott said, I guess, so I'm the COO and CFO for Tulich. So we build, own and operate aged care facilities and retirement villages in New South Wales. And as Scott said, we partnered around 3 to 4 years ago and started building an asset management or property management platform dedicated to the aged care and retirement space. We had quite a big success in New South Wales, and the asset management plan for retirement villages came out. There's further plans for that to come out in WA next, which has been passed in their retirement village bill. So we're excited about that next stage for WA, and I believe they're doing 5-year plans, whereas the New South Wales is currently 10, but probably going to get reduced, which we'll work with. And then Victoria is probably next. So we're sort of working with that wave in terms of retirement villages, but also expanding to basically being covered for all aged care facilities as well, in terms of the quality standards, strengthened standards, new Aged Care Act, all of the above. That's a bit of a background, but Scott will take you through the presentation and a bit of a demo.
That's right. Thanks, Aidan. Yeah, we have a lot of interest from all over Australia, including even Tasmania. We have a demo coming up with someone in Tasmania this week. We've had interest even in things outside of aged care and retirement villages, such as women's shelters and other facilities like that need to manage their assets. Because really what we're talking about here is an asset management plan, meaning physical assets, your equipment, your furniture, your equipment, your whatever's needed to run the facility. Of course, aged care is different than retirement village. There's a lot of overlap, but retirement villages is focused more on what is in the ILU, the independent living unit, refrigerators, microwaves, stove. Aged care has got a little different orientation, but the same idea that you want to track your assets as well as you can, and provide, save money by keeping them up, maintained properly with preventative maintenance and regular maintenance, and make sure that your environment, your service environment, is meeting all the highest standards you can. And there's a lot of regulations and standards. I was reading through them before this webinar. I don't know if I have to plow through them. I can if people want to, but there's these aged care standards. There's, with all these, I think it's 7.1 or 3.1 or whatever the numbers are. They're saying that the service environment, the assets, the management of your facilities and the equipment in it is of paramount importance to delivering quality care to the aged care people, the elderly, and also for and it's also just makes good, plain economic sense. And if you need another reason, there's also the government audits and regulations to follow. So it's all good reasons to follow to get a plan in place. So before we jump into the Asset Journey program, I just want to take a little segue here and talk about the new program we have come out with recently called ESIP. That's our name for it, but it's a continuous improvement plan for aged care operators. In an aged care facility, it's required by the Australian Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission to have a continuous improvement plan or a plan for continuous improvement. Sometimes they mix up the letters, PCI or CIP. But the idea is that they want you to be driving towards this model of continuous improvement. If there's some element of your of your environment or your processes, procedures, or equipment that is not meeting the standards. They have the current standards and coming out with the strengthened standards in July, and it's not meeting them. They want to see what you're doing to improve it, what actions you're taking, and what the outcomes are, and then confirming with the, this is one thing. I was watching some webinars. I was also at the ACPA conference with Aiden in Adelaide last month, and the emphasis is really about are the elderly people getting the care they want from their perspective, and also are the workers in your facility empowered and engaged and have the processes, procedures, and training and equipment they need to deliver quality care. So the Aged Care Quality Commission, love it or not, love it or hate it, whatever the attitude, they're driving towards this direction of providing, helping, encouraging, or whatever you want to call it, encouraging, pushing, showing, I don't know, every facility to provide the best care they can. And one way is through this ESIP program, the idea of continuous improvement. If there's a lack or some feedback from a resident or a worker or an auditor, or even your board of directors just decide something needs to be changed, this has to be tracked through with an improvement item. Who's working on it? What's the outcome? Was the outcome successful? And that's all in our ESIP program now. So you can easily, here it is right here. If you want to take a look at it, you have plans. The plans have improvement items. There's tasks, and you're tracking it all so that you can show that you're working. You're doing your best to meet the standards and drive the change in your organization that's going to help you do that. So that's a little segue. I know this wasn't about ESIP, about the continuous improvement plan, but I did want to point that out before we get into the asset journey.
And just before you move on, Scott, I guess the key point, because we've just attended the Village Summit in WA and Brisbane yesterday. And we actually talked about ESIP, because ESIP is a plan for continuous improvement for aged care, but we've also actually developed it for villages as well. So it actually all it really does is the same program, but gives you different reporting. So instead of the Department of Health aged care dedicated format, you get a village format, and it's basically for the same thing. So you can use continuous improvement across your village and track everything for your village, as well as aged care if you're co-located.
That's right, and we want to make you aware that that's available, and people are finding it quite useful. Of course, we correlate the improvement items with the standards, and we can issue the reports that are necessary for the auditing to show that this improvement item correlates with this standard or substandard, subcategory of the standard, and here's a report that shows what we're doing, what actions we're taking, what outcome, and all that. But our focus today really is on the asset journey. So let me go over to asset journey program. And the asset journey program is focused, the core of the program is really maintaining assets. So you have like your list of assets up here. And in addition to maintaining the assets, it's also about maintenance of the assets, whether it's preventative, meaning regularly scheduled, or it's reactive, which could come from a number of sources. A lot of times it's from the residents or other workers or staff or whatever, but residents, and for residents, we have a couple of capabilities of them, a couple of ways they can provide, indicate a ticket or request for maintenance, whatever. It could be through, just coming up to the front desk. It could be a phone call. It could be, but also we integrate with apps, various apps out there that are resident apps that the resident, people seem to be using their smartphones, their phones more with apps on it, so they can submit a request to one of those apps, and we synchronize, coordinate, integrate with those, and then that can come into our system that way also. So there's many ways you can create a new ticket, a new reactive maintenance, indicate that the asset needs some kind of repair, and then send someone out to do it. So let's take a look at what's going on here. This is just the initial search page. It depends on how you want to approach the product, how you want to approach the day. So you want to make sure all your assets, like most people probably be looking more at like, what are the preventative maintenance tasks? What are the reactive maintenance tasks from that perspective? And if you go over here to reactive maintenance, you can see that there's 25 open ones, 103 altogether, 14 overdue. And of course, if you click this, you'll see those 14, 5 are due in 7 days. Then you go, my personal one, meaning they've been assigned to Crow Canyon here, 15, and which ones are open and completed. So you get a pretty good way, pretty good insight into what the status of what tasks are out there and what the status of them are. And here's one. If we just look at this one, You can see all the details about the task. Of course, this is correlated with an asset at the same time. In this case, it's, you can see the asset is right here. They're replacing a seal on the door of the refrigerator, and the task name is replace seal on door. There's a status, a priority, a task type, job number. If you're going outside, bringing in an outside supplier, you correlate with their invoicing, who's the resident, who's it assigned to, who's the supplier, start date, due date, resolve, verification. And one important part that ties into the asset management plan, the audits and the asset register and the 10-year plans and all that, is the cost. So there is a labor cost, part cost, actual cost. So when the ticket is completed, when the task is completed, this cost will go into the cost record of this asset right here. So when it's completed, when the cost is calculated, it will go in and become a part of the record of the task, of the asset, of the reactive maintenance of this asset. And I'll show you when we go to the asset, that there's a place for preventative maintenance costs and actual maintenance and reactive maintenance costs. Because part of the 10-year plan is doing an estimated maintenance cost, both preventative and reactive. And then as you go through the time, you can see the actual as correlated to the estimate. And this sort of ties into the whole maintenance of the asset in the sense of if your maintenance costs are exceeding 90% of the cost of the asset or other factors, it shows you that the asset is requiring a lot of extra maintenance, and then you can make a case to replace it. So you have all the statistics of the asset. Let's go right to the asset and take a look at that. And so you kind of tie them together here to show how the task and the assets tie together. So in the asset, you've got all the information you need about the asset, the ID, the type, the title, description, condition, reporting, all this asset information, make, serial number, where it's located, and what department, all these information. But really also very important is financial information. Who you bought it from, when it was bought, what the effective life is. Usually it's 10 years for a refrigerator. It's from the ATO, the Australian Tax Office table. What's the proposed date of replacement? What's the estimated cost of replacement? And then over here, when then the invoice number, purchase price, actual cost, all that. But if you look at the estimated preventative, estimated reactive that you put into this system as you need for your 10-year plan, then you can also correlate it now with the actual maintenance. So the actual maintenance preventative, the actual maintenance, the actual cost of preventative maintenance is nothing in this case. In this one, it's been $1,000 for total reactive maintenance. So you can get some idea of what's going on with each asset and whether it needs to be replaced. And of course, you can generate a lot of reports about that in the report center. Generate reports that show all the assets that have exceeded 90% of their purchase price, all the assets that are due within 1 year of effective life, all the assets that, any kind of way you want to slice and dice the information so that you can really start to plan out that in the next year, we're going to have to replace, proposed data replacement in the proposed cost of replacement, estimated cost, proposed date. You put those together, you're starting to say, okay, in 2025, it looks like we're going to have to replace 20 refrigerators and 15 dishwashers, and it's going to cost this much. So you can kind of project out there because, it's always kind of an estimate, but it gives you a lot more handle over how you're managing your capital costs and your operating costs and all that. So that's a very simple introduction into how the reactive maintenance and the assets tie together. We also have preventative maintenance so that if someone if some asset needs regular maintenance, such as, replace the ice filter or clean the gutters or, whatever it is, that can become a regularly scheduled task. And then the cost of that, again, is tied into the asset when the task is completed. There's a maintenance schedule. You can schedule tasks. You have a calendar, you have a schedule. And when you schedule the tasks, you have these templates of, say, replace ice filter. So you create these task templates that say this task is for this individual asset called the refrigerator, and the name is all this. So it's going to go off on a monthly calendar starting on March 1st of 2024. And it's going to go for 11 months. I mean, you set all this up, and then the tasks are created automatically as the time comes up to generate that and inform and notify people that this task needs to be completed. Now, another thing we can do with the maintenance tasks, the preventative, is create maintenance groups. They might have 20 refrigerators that need, that need to be checked or update a filter or whatever. So you create a maintenance group that's like all the refrigerators, all the ones in building C, all the air conditioners, all the Bosch washers, I don't know, whatever it is, you create these from, it's actually a group of assets, any number of assets, and then the preventative maintenance would be like, go out and check the filters or the Freon or whatever they do with air conditioners. So check all 20 air conditioners on level 2 of building C. And that could be assigned to an outside supplier and say, okay, it's going to take $2,000 to do those 20 air conditioners. So then you divide by 20, each task is $100. So we have our system, once the supplier does the check, we'll take that $2,000, split it up 20 times, give each asset $100 preventative maintenance, actual preventative maintenance added to the asset. So you see, even when you do maintenance groups, you still have the capability to divide up the cost of that maintenance and put it into the record of that asset. Of course, if there's reactive maintenance, such as one of the air conditioners is broken, it requires $500 to fix it. Now, well, that becomes specific to that particular asset, and it's not to the other asset. So it's really a great system for keeping track of what needs to be maintained regularly and what is a break fix kind of thing, where there's something unexpectedly broke and you need to go in and repair it, and what the cost is, what labor, parts, and all that becomes a record in the assets itself. So that's all tied together. And then what the AMP reports, especially New South Wales, but it looks like it's going to other states across Australia, are the reports. And we have the report center right here. We have the AMP reports, departmental reports, age care reports, different kind of reports. And these are specific to the requirements of the legislation here. And they want you to have an asset register, your maintenance schedule estimated, your maintenance schedule actuals, your 3-year report with a year or less effective life, 3-year report with accumulated cost of repair greater than 90% of purchase. So you're able to see quite clearly what items need replacing and all that. Now, Aidan, these reports are quite important from a financial point of view to estimate the cost going forward, right? As well as meet the legislative requirements. Oh, you're on mute. We don't hear you.
Perfect.
There you go.
So, yeah, I guess from a legislative perspective, they're there and ready for you. And then I guess New South Wales based anyway, you're all sorted. WA will be sorted, Victoria sorted. I guess for the other states, so it's not legislative. I guess what's the benefit is having information and accurate data of what's happening with your assets. But then also, yeah, linking it to your sort of financial data of, does your fixed asset register match your fixed asset register figures in your accounts? Essentially, you can do the depreciation through here as well, so it should always match. All your additions and disposals should be filtered through the system, so it should always match your GL in your accounts. So from a financial perspective, it's good in terms of that audit style, but then also for decision making. So if you're thinking about replacing something, then you can go back and see all the data of all the preventive maintenance, reactive maintenance, how it is to decide whether to replace or not. We find it specifically helpful during refurbs. So those, obviously, we all do refurbs in villages and aged care, and they cost quite a lot of money. So it's really handy to know what's in there, what's not in there, what's old, what's happened to it, so you can make a decision of whether to replace it during the refurb process as well.
That's right. That's right. And so when we look at the assets, we can go back to the asset list now and look at all the different assets, and you can see that you can group and sort this. You can say all the ones in building, you can filter by building, say all the ones in building A. Filter here, you can say all the ones that are active in building A. I mean, all kinds of ways of slicing and dicing this data to get information you need on here, maybe only the ones that are furniture in this building. So now, oh, there are none. Okay, so maybe we want to go to kitchen or something like that, things like that. So there's all kinds of ways to slice and dice this data and give you really good insights into your assets, what's up there, what's available. We have these properties where you can update the status, unlink it from maintenance group, create a maintenance group, create a maintenance task, update the preventive maintenance, reactive maintenance, purchase, all kinds of different things you can do to really track your assets very carefully and closely. And according to New South Wales, they're really concerned only about things that are cost $1,000 or more, $1,000 or more. But a lot of people, almost everybody we've done this system for, has put pretty much all their assets in here, because then they can keep track of everything, even if it's like $100, $200. I mean, don't get ridiculous down to $5, but anything that's even like a $200 or $500 item can go into this. They can keep really close track of it. Now, the other point is that in preventative and reactive maintenance, we have notifications. These are activities, very actively keeping people aware of that a task has been assigned to them, that a task is overdue, that a task needs attention, and we can also, if it came from a resident, go back and inform the resident that the task has been assigned or that it's been resolved, and they can verify it's been resolved. So there's a whole notification and communication aspect to this program that is going on here, especially in relation to the task. Who's working on it? When it's due? Is it overdue? You can really manage your task and your work orders quite well using this system here. The primary focus being an AMP is assets, but the tasks are quite important also in the reports. Now, what we also have done is a number of other things, among other things, is with suppliers. One thing that's very important is to know which of your suppliers are in compliance and out of compliance, and whether they have the proper, certifications and other things to come on site. And so you can see that this, say, Bob's air conditioner is in compliance because their certificate of currency, public liability, code of conduct, serious incident report are all due in 2025. So they're good. But what can also happen is if the expiration date of one of these is coming up, say it's like May 1st, this is May 31st. And so May 1st, you may want to send a notice to Bob's air conditioning, whatever the email address is here, automatically, and say, hey Bob, hey Mr. Jones, whatever, it looks like can we get a new certificate of currency? It's going to run out at the end of the month. And then they can supply that to you or not. I mean, hopefully they will, but they also can be reminded that, after 2 weeks, hey, it's coming up, it's going to expire. And even after expiring, say, well, now you're marked out of compliance and you want to come on our site, we better get your certificates up to date. Then inside working for each supplier are contractors. In this case, there's one guy here, John Wharton, and he is also needs certain compliances like police check, a flu vaccination, code of conduct, and COVID vaccination. You don't have anything in here, so this guy would be needing to supply that information to your organization so that he can be certified or qualified to come work on the site. Then also with each supplier, you can look at any documentation, any maintenance tasks that's related to them, any assets that they're in charge of, and that kind of thing. So it's a supplier management element to it too that people find very useful, because they want to know who's in compliance, they want to know what skills they have, they want to know what tasks they worked on, they want to know any related contracts and documents. So it becomes a very good way to tie in with the task, who's going to do the task, who's going to sign it, and then who's working on it, and all that. Now, from a rooms perspective, you can come in and look at your rooms and say, okay, here's all the rooms by the building, meaning that it's grouped by the different buildings. There's 267 resident rooms, 247 are occupied, 20 are vacant. So you say, oh, what rooms are vacant? And go in and look at those and assign them to a particular resident, and 91 are non-resident rooms. So if 307's not been assigned to a resident, then you can go in and say, who's the current, nobody, who's the former residents, who's the former residents that have transferred out, someone departed, unfortunately deceased on this one, but other personal reasons, former residents, maybe they wanted to move to a different location or to aged care or whatever. If you need to know that information, it's there. So you have a history of each room. And then if it's empty, you can say, okay, we're going to go in and that's available to a new resident. So there's also the assets in the room, any maintenance that's been done, any alterations to the room, and maybe even an image of it. That one doesn't particularly have much in it, but some of them have a more information about that are in there and alterations. The idea with the alterations is that you can record any alterations that were done in that room. Let me go over here to the rooms and expand this list. You'll see all the alterations right here. And this one was they changed the kitchen cabinets in this room, M301, and it's a proposed alteration, date of request, date quote approved, quotation cost, all that information is captured so that as Aidan was saying earlier, if there's a refurb or a change of resident, that factor of the alteration can be put into play and considered whether the village will continue with the, will absorb the maintenance of the alteration or whether they're going to revert it back or some kind of arrangement with the new resident as to how that alteration affects the price and maintenance of that room, as I understand it, right? And then there's we also included a resident aspect here so that we know there's 10 current residents, how many are present, how many are absent. Absent comes in importance when you say there's some kind of emergency. You want to know who's there, who isn't there, how many male, female, married, single. These are kind of more for reporting and statistics. I think some government need for it. You can have, so you take one of these residents and she is living in this room over here. She moved in on this date, she transferred on that date, she departed on that date, she hasn't departed yet. Also, for each resident, you have a large amount of information, what documents there are, what tasks they've been asking about, feedback, which is very important these days as far as improvement items, and keeping up to the standards is knowing what feedback have the residents put out. And we'll dive into that a little more in a moment while I show you some of the other things that are here. Is when they've been absent, what's the related items, who's associates, the pets even, the cars, the parking spaces. This is so that if you see a car just parked out there with license plate XXX or something, you can say, oh, I'm gonna go look up what license number, what resident that's associated with. Also, if a pet gets lost or something, things like that. Associates could be like a lawyer or solicitor or whatever, friend, power of attorney, family member. So there's all kinds of information about each resident that's being recorded. I talked about feedback, so I'm going to go here and look at the resident feedback section. They get feedback on the asset management plan. They have feedback in general. This is important for feedback on what this new phone system's announcing who's calling. It's kind of weird. I didn't know it did that. Oh, I know that. Okay. So here's the story. Aidan, you want to talk about the importance of resident feedback? Because this is really, really growing in stature inside the aged care and retirement village as far as providing quality care and listening to your residents, right?
Yeah, so I guess what we use it heavily here at the Royce, and so we use it twofold. So you got because we're co-located here, you have aged care, and we actually use it as our compliments and complaints portal for aged care compliments and complaints, and following it through open disclosure. And then for the village, similar. So we actually do it for all compliments, feedback, complaints, observations. So every sort of dealing with a resident or visitor or family member is actually recorded in the system so that you can go back any time and see exactly what's happened with each resident, things like that. And really it just boosts that conversation that I guess you're always, if you've got a meeting with a resident, you can go back and see everything that they've ever commented on. And it sort of gives you a step ahead of where you need to be before you start meetings, basically.
Yeah, that plus also it can tie into the continuous improvement plan where the resident feedback may be like, I don't know, the sidewalk's too bumpy, you need to repave it, or the swimming pool is not quite right, or the food is too salty. I don't know anything. I'm making stuff up, obviously, but there's all kinds of things that could then tie into an improvement item. And it could even be, and this is people are very sensitive to this these days, is something to do with their culture. They may feel like they're not getting enough, I don't know, what do you call it? I'm thinking of the word, they talk about dignity or appreciating, or I guess you could call it, or acknowledging their culture and giving them the space to do that. It could be, whether they need a prayer room or they need some other accommodation for their faith or for their culture or whatever. That's also something that could come from resident feedback. And one thing I remember from one of the lectures I went to in part of this aged care, journey that around asset journey, on my aged care journey, journey that we're on and learning more and more about this is that the Age Care Quality and Safety Commission is very concerned that when you do provide care and when you do your improvement items, are you, I mean, the judge of it all, I guess you could say, is the resident. Is the resident getting what he or she needs? Is she feeling that they're getting quality care and up to the standards that they expect, and with the dignity and all that they deserve as elderly members of the community, and I don't know, all that stuff. I think you guys are quite aware of what I'm talking about. But the final arbiter, you might say, of your performance of your care is, according to the Age Care Quality and Safety Commission, is the elderly person. Is he or she, you know, um, getting or feels that way? And I mean, of course, some people are probably overly demanding, of course, but there's some balance to all that. But that is the direction that the Age Care Quality and Safety Commission wants to move the quality of care into. And the other part is, like I said earlier, about the workers also have to feel engaged, empowered, and trained properly with what they need to move it. So the bottom line I'm trying to say here is the resident feedback is not just a minor little thing. It's something that really needs to be given attention. And so we track it carefully, and every piece of every feedback that's here needs to know who's provided it, resident, all the resident, where they live, what maybe it's related to an asset, but was it resolved? What was the date of resolution? What is the action that was taken? What was, and it could be like, well, this is just some more nonsense from Mr. Jones or something, but it also could be something that you need to take quite seriously and have some kind of comment or some kind of thing, because some kind of response, I guess you could say, some kind of response to that. So than just recording the feedback, it now becomes sort of an action item. What do we do? Do we escalate it to an improvement item? Do we, how do we resolve this? So it becomes part of the daily work is to figure out how to respond to it. And this feedback form keeps really close track. And if it hasn't been resolved by X day, you can do notifications, and it helps you drive quality care in your organization. That's really what we're about, right, Aiden? It's how to drive quality care, how to provide the software that helps keep the assets in the best shape, the resident, attention to the resident feedback, make sure suppliers are in compliance, produce the reports that the legislation requires, and also to help your organization run more efficiently by not letting an asset, keeping track of the assets, keeping them up to date, repairing them, different things you can do to plan out the finances and the repairs and the tasks. I think a lot of villages that I've worked with and talked with, preventative maintenance is always a great idea. It's just hard to put into action sometimes because there's so many things to do all the time, and there's all these break fix to react to. And so having a preventative maintenance plan in place that has regularly scheduled tasks really helps. And I know, from my experience working with it, it's sometimes a little hard to keep up with all the different things because, clean the gutters or fix the leaking faucet, it's kind of like, so you have to kind of figure out what is the priorities. But if you can move it all in the preventative maintenance direction, you're going to have better asset repairs, better maintenance, longer life on the assets. Whatever's needed to keep it in best running order means that it's going to have a longer life, even though it takes a little bit of effort to keep it in that, re-oil the stuff or re-grease something or change a filter or recalibrate, or whatever the action is. So even the preventative maintenance aspect of our program can provide a lot of benefits by encouraging things in that direction. When you say at Aiden, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Can't always be just fixing reactive maintenance. You have to be able to plan out different tasks that can be completed, that can be completed to keep the asset in the tip-top shape. And that's better for residents too, because they have better working assets that are kept in shape, then there's less complaints because they're maybe replace the
we find it key because what's going on at every point with preventative or reactive, and it's really more reactive that I guess you get complaints, not so much preventative, because preventative just happens in the background. Is really what happens. It's more the reactive. They put a complaint, a maintenance request in, and then you're actually tracking how that's going and feeding communication back to them about the status and things like that.
Yeah, and also the legislation does require some output to the residents so they can analyze the asset register and look at the assets in their ILU, especially retirement villages, where they have independent living. Some residents, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Aidan, but I think some residents are very interested and concerned about. Other residents don't really pay too much attention. I guess it's like the old bell curve kind of thing where they kind of want to know it's there, but they don't necessarily want to plow through all the numbers necessarily. But according to legislation, it's available on demand. So you're meeting that requirement, at least in the New South Wales legislation. Likely what's going to come out in the other one. So there, it's considered a communication tool, in some ways, and say, okay, we know your assets. This is what we're doing. We're taking care of them. And then if you have to replace one, you can say why. Or if they ask you to replace one, you can say why not, right? Because you have, well, why replace it? It's working fine. We did preventive maintenance on it last month. So, it gives you like leverage to have that conversation, that communication about the asset. Good. Now, one other thing before I should mention is that we have test and tag also. You go in and you can test all the items of their plugs and all the electrical equipment. Another item here, who did the contractor, certificate number, label color, path fail. If it failed to become a reactive maintenance task that then is resolved somehow, then go back and test it again. Just a minor aside there to know. We tried to make a full comprehensive program, and we're learning more as legislation comes out, as we Aidan's been doing this quite a bit longer than I have. But I find it a fascinating world, and aged care is got its own set of parameters and requirements, and retirement villages have another set, and it's looking like we can even branch into women's shelters and possibly other property management scenarios, because it all centers around the idea that you have a set of things you bought, things being assets, of many different types. And you need to keep track of them. You need to know where they are, who's using them, what maintenance has been done, what preventative maintenance is needed, when it needs replacing. You have to plan out, the future of it. It's like 2 years from now, we're going to have to buy a bunch of refrigerators, plan out the cost and budget. And then with the retirement villages, we tie it to rooms and residents, and we pay attention to the resident feedback. And now with the new ESIP program, the continuous improvement plan, we can also help organizations meet the standards, especially the aged care strength standards, to know that the service environment and all the other aspects, the residents, the facilities, the care, all that is driven. The aged care facility is driving towards a way of providing the best care they possibly can to the elderly, and also helping their workers achieve that goal. So, it's always a work in progress, isn't it? It's never quite done. There's always something new to do. And, but as long as you're making the effort, I think is what the government audit, my sense, I mean, I'm no expert on it, but my sense of the government auditors, they see you have asset journey in place. And I've actually seen this happen where you have asset journey in place. We know you're trying your best to put a AMP and keep your asset information up to date. And I'm sure we'll see that the same thing with the ESIP program. As that rolls out to more and more organizations, they'll say, okay, you got a continuous improvement plan in place. Nobody's perfect. It's never going to have every last thing in it. But if you have at least trying through having these pieces of software and filling out, making a plan, making improvement items, tying it to standards, that's for the ESIP. Or if you're doing the asset journey and you're showing that you're keeping track of the assets as best you can, you're doing maintenance on them, you're giving reports to the residents, you're listening to resident feedback, it's going to be much smoother sailing than not, trying to do all this stuff with a spreadsheet or some other, kind of homegrown way that doesn't really meet the requirements. All right.
Say that again, Scott, or you cut out?
Oh, I did? Sorry. I was saying that, all the goal here is to help all these, whether it's aged care or retirement villages, meet the goal of both for their own personal and organizational reasons to provide the best care, but also for certifications and government audits and to keep track of, keep up to date, keep up with the government commission's requirements, right?
Yeah, I think it's obviously there's a compliance perspective, obviously, and it's more stringent in certain areas like aged care as an example to then the state-based legislation for retirement villages. But then there's just the operational efficiencies of it, of knowing exactly what you have, what maintenance, what repairs, and extending that further to having like obviously those extra modules. We've got like resident feedback, continuous improvement plans, all that sort of stuff, and just having more of a holistic system that you can actually use on the ground. Our maintenance team have the iPads on the ground here doing all the maintenance and reactive, and it flows straight through to the system, and then that flows straight through the reporting for sort of my purposes to have a look at where we're up to with each stage of each item.
That's right. It's really good having Aiden on board because he's neck deep in this every day. This is his world. And you were just in two conferences, Brisbane and Perth, right? And
Yeah, correct.
And I was over there for Adelaide, at the one in Adelaide and ACPA, the really big conference in mid of October, sort of end of October. And that was a wonderful.
Yeah, we're going to be at the Village Summit in Melbourne tomorrow, and then also the Village Summit in Sydney next Thursday.
So get a chance to go any of those, you can meet us in person. Get what are we giving out now? Pens, tape measures, something.
Torches are a hit.
That's right, the torches. That's right.
Yeah.
So, all right. I think the best, if anyone wants to move forward, the best step would be to get in touch with Aiden and I. We have, sales at assetjourney.com or just email me directly or Aiden directly, and we can. The registration. I think my email address is in the registration. Why don't I bring that up? I think I have a PowerPoint with that on it, that information. Here's Asset Journey. It's probably near the end. And that's it. Yeah, sales at Asset Journey or Aiden right there, or request a demo through our site. The point is that having the one-on-one conversations really brings it home because you may have one village, you may have multiple villages, you may have 50 ILUs, you may be co-located, you may not, you may have 300 ILUs, you may be building new facilities here and there. Who knows until we talk to you? And we've been able to cover most of those scenarios. We have some with 7 or 8 villages. We have some that are just 49 ILUs. So it's a full range, and we price it accordingly, of course. And help you get it up and running. And I personally find it fascinating. I hope to go back to Australia. Maybe I've been there already twice. Maybe in the spring, and follow this up more. I'm up in California, by the way, back in California now after the trip. Anyway, so the point is that it's a fascinating world of aged care and retirement village, and providing the software that helps organizations run more smoothly. We feel like it's a really good thing to do and helpful, and it came all out of Aiden working at the Royce in the real world of a combined aged care retirement village facility and what their needs are, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's come from, I guess, building it from an operator's perspective from the ground up, whereas usually it sort of happens the other way around.
Right. It's just kind of, so it's really good. All right. So why don't we leave it at that? I don't see any questions per se, but if anybody does and wants to take it further, well, of course, we'll email you the link and the to the webinar, and then you can always respond to us, and we'll take it from there. And like I said earlier, like was saying, he'll be at some of the shows coming up, and they can always stop by our booth if we're there and say hi and talk more. And Aiden, anything else, or you think we're good on this webinar?
No, I think that's it. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Okay. Have a good day. All right.
Appreciate it, everybody.
Thanks, Aiden. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.